Hi, my name is Morris Franco. I recently completed a series of 8 videos in an effort to alert concerned citizens about our country's out-of-control national debt. I cover this issue in depth. I would love every interested American to view the complete set. But since the videos, when combined, run over 3 hours and 20 minutes, I doubt that will happen. So in order to entice your interest, I am doing this extra video, including short excerpts from each of the already completed 8 videos. In this set of videos, I explain how the national debt became so huge. I identify the major players and explain the part each plays in the national debt crisis. The major players being the U.S. government, the major credit agencies, the Federal Reserve Bank, and the bond investor. I show why about 20 to 25% of all tax revenues will go towards paying debt interest by 2020. I even show why the U.S. government is risking bankruptcy if corrective actions are not taken soon, and much more. On the face of it, a discussion of the national debt might appear boring. On the assumption that you, the viewer, is a concerned American, I assure you these videos are not. Videos 2, 3, and 4 are easy listening. In videos 2 and 3, I discuss the parts the rating agencies and the Federal Reserve plays. In video 4, I do a comparison of an everyday citizen to the financial condition of the government. These 3 videos all run less than 13 minutes. In videos 5 and 6, I try to back up my opinions with hard facts. Unfortunately, these 2 videos involve a lot of number crunching, which makes them difficult to present and even more difficult to consume. Video 7 and 8 post-date my book. In video 7, I explain why my predictions are slow to come true. In video 8, I discuss some possible solutions and why the government has put itself into a no-win situation. Please allow me the liberty of recommending the first 2 videos I think you should review. For the best overview of the national debt, may I suggest you view the final video, video number 8, titled The Final Chapter. It runs 29 minutes. My second choice is video number 4, titled Ralph Kramden, The Honeymoon is Over. It runs 12 minutes. This video shows the financial condition of our country in the clearest possible way. However, to fully understand the scope of the crisis, and as I see it, all the factors related to this crisis, I suggest you buy some popcorn and view the entire set of videos in numerical order over a couple of days. Video presentations are not one of my strong points. Sometimes I have trouble reading 3 sentences in a row without making a mistake. There are plenty of errors in these videos. Some are obvious, but I show you none are material. The excerpts. Video 1. Why it's a threat to America. It runs 7 minutes. This video is a brief introduction to the series of videos I plan to do on the national debt crisis. The excerpt. There are many good websites and videos addressing the national debt problem, but almost all concentrate on the size of the debt as the main problem. The national debt is a twofold problem. The second being interest taxpayers will have to pay to fund the debt. It is the mandatory interest requirements that will bring this problem to a head. Video 2, Rating the Rating Agencies, runs 12 minutes. In this video, I discuss how the credit agencies are adding to the problem by overrating U.S. Treasury securities. The excerpt. The United States is expected to have a national debt approaching $20 trillion by the time President Obama leaves office. We have not done a very good job on spending, borrowing about $1 trillion a year over the last 6 years just to meet budget expenses. In addition, by 2017, the United States will need to budget at least $1 trillion a year just to cover debt interest expense. In a normal interest rate environment, it will require at least 20% of all tax revenues just to pay the interest on the national debt. This statement assumes an interest rate of at least 5%, which is less than the average interest rate over the 45 years preceding the 2007-2008 recession. Add to that around $90 trillion in unfunded liabilities, perpetual budget overruns, and you have a picture of the United States as it exists today. Video 3. The Federal Reserve's con game. Runs 9 minutes. The Federal Reserve is the organization that sets interest rates on Treasury securities. 99% of all interest-bearing investments key off the rates the Federal Reserve sets. That includes investment products like bank CDs, mortgages, corporate and junk bonds, and the like. In this video, I discuss the con game the Federal Reserve is playing by shilling for the government, buying $4 trillion in treasuries and mortgage-backed securities to manipulate the bond market and punish investors who don't agree with their low interest rate policy. In general, many investors believe Treasury should pay a higher interest rate because of the risk associated with the U.S. carrying such a huge national debt. The excerpt. The Federal Reserve is in fact manipulating the bond market. In America, manipulating the price of any product available to the public is illegal. That is illegal for everyone except the Federal Reserve. This is a joke. I can't think of a single product on planet Earth that has a market value higher than the U.S. national debt. Yet the government entity responsible for ensuring the economic wellness of the nation is permitted to peddle trillions of dollars worth of bonds at a price different from its true market value. Video 4. Ralph Kramden, The Honeymoon is Over. Runs 12 minutes. In this video, I show what the balance sheet of the United States would look like if it could be compared to the average family. Here I use Ralph Kramden from the Honeymooners series as my sample family. In my opinion, this video is the best in the series in showing why the national debt is such a huge problem. The excerpt. Like I just stated, multiplying Ralph's income and expense ratios by 1,000 or 1,000,000 and you do nothing to improve his credit rating. But multiplying it by 100 million and you're a stellar credit. That's right, a 5-star credit risk. Credit agencies like Moody's and Fitch rate your debt as the safest investment on the planet, closely followed by S&P. The income, expense, and debt ratios of the U.S. government are exactly the same as Ralph's. Yet investors around the world are willing to lend us trillions of dollars for 30 years at an interest rate of less than 4% and for 10 years at an interest rate of less than 3%. Video 5. Countdown to Armageddon. Runs 32 minutes. In this video, I throw a lot of numbers at you. I try, and I believe successfully, to back up my opinions with facts. I show you how the national debt grew from 2.8 trillion in 1989 to the 18 trillion it is today. Even more importantly, I show you why it is the interest on the national debt that will be the cause of the major crisis our nation will eventually face, and that because of a combination of the Federal Reserve normalizing interest rates and endless budget deficits, by 1919 or 1920, debt interest will reach at least 1 trillion annually. The excerpt. Where money is involved, there are no nice guys. The weaker America's credit becomes, the faster bond vigilantes will pounce. Investors of every kind will run from U.S. bonds, ranging from pension funds to sovereign nations. This will force the Treasury to keep boosting rates and start a cycle of increasing budget deficits and expanding national debt. The Federal Reserve is in fact the sovereign bank of the United States. The sovereign bank of Greece was unable to prevent the default of Greek government bonds, and bondholders lost 50% of their principal investments. Spain and Italy also got into similar trouble and were able to prevent the crisis only because of the European Union's intervention. There is no entity on earth with the financial resources needed to bail out the U.S. Treasury should the debt crisis get out of control. The United States will then face a financial Armageddon. Video 6A and B. Will the United States default on its debt? Runs 26 minutes and 20 minutes respectively. In these videos, I go out on a limb and predict that a default by the United States is the most likely resolution to the national debt crisis. Again, I throw a bunch of stats at you. I take the long view, comparing the last 30 years to the next 30 years. The videos part 5 and 6 are not what you would call easy listening. Unfortunately, the national debt is not easy to explain or understand. If you are truly interested in understanding this problem, you should view these videos in their entirety. The excerpt, updated. Growing the debt without pain. The national debt grew by about 80% to over 18 trillion by 2015, from about 10 trillion in 2008. The Fed's low interest rate policy was in effect throughout the period, yet the amount of debt interest paid barely budged from year to year. This was made possible by the fact that debt issued prior to the Fed's low rate policy yielded higher rates, and upon maturity was rolled over at the current low rates. This had the effect of keeping the growth of the national debt out of the public eye, as the government was able to increase the size of the national debt massively without having to increase a comparable amount of debt interest. Video 7. Why the credit agencies don't act, runs 33 minutes. At various points in earlier videos, I stated that interest rates were too low and would rise once the Federal Reserve ended its massive $4 trillion bond buying program. The program has since ended and interest rates remain mostly unchanged. In this video, I explain why that happened. I explain why I believe the Treasury market is in a bubble and has been there for a long time. I also show how the government is intimidating the rating agencies into continuing their top ratings of U.S. debt. The excerpt. There is very little difference between the housing bubble that caused the 2007-2008 recession and the dot-com bubble. The difference being that the bursting of the housing bubble was a much bigger problem and caused major damage to the entire economy. In both examples, the cause of the bubble was simply the overvaluing of the asset, the dot-com stock, and the homes. The bursting of the dot-com bubble caused NASDAQ and New York Stock Exchange investors a total of 6 or 7 trillion. CNN in the June 2011 post to their website placed the loss of household wealth resulting from the bursting of the housing bubble at more than 16 trillion. That equates to a 25% loss of wealth for the entire country. Video 7B. The Investor and the Federal Reserve. Runs 19 minutes. The Federal Reserve's low interest rate policy that started with the 2008 recession is still in effect today. The reason is simple. The economy hasn't improved since then. However, in this video, I will show you why there is more to the Federal Reserve's low rate policy than just a poor economy. In this video, I also give my opinions on President Obama, Janet Yellen, the chairman of the Federal Reserve, and the mindset of the bond investor. The excerpt. In my opinion, President Obama stole the election for his second term as president. Has he told the truth about Obamacare, he never would have been reelected. He now abuses his power and uses executive action to change laws, create no laws, or completely disregard laws in order to advance his ultra-liberal political agenda. The national debt is out of control, and I don't think we can look to President Obama for any help in this area. Remember his comment after the S&P downgrade in August of 2011, quote, "But here's the good news. Our problems are eminently solvable." and we know what we have to do to solve them. End quote. He wouldn't lie about this, would he? Video 8. The final chapter runs 29 minutes. In this video, I summarize the points I tried to make in the other 7 videos. In addition, I identify a possible solution to the crisis. I personally believe this is the best video of the series and strongly recommend you see it. Here I give you 2 excerpts. Excerpt 1. I stated in previous videos that it will ultimately be the bond investor who will bring the national debt problem to a head by backing off the purchase of Treasury securities because of the rotting financial condition of the United States. The need for the Federal Reserve to entice bond investors by boosting interest rates, along with the growth of the national debt, will ultimately require such huge annual debt interest payments that it will be next to impossible to continue funding the debt. This will be accompanied by a series of debt downgrades by the major credit agencies and ultimately lead to a restructuring of the debt and a partial default by the U.S. government. This action will mean economic Armageddon for the United States, bringing on a crisis that is beyond my imagination. Excerpt 2. Today, investors worldwide view the United States as the safest place on earth to put their money in spite of our $18 trillion national debt. In fact, the more severe the economic crisis, the faster they run to the U.S. Treasury market. 2 of the 3 major credit agencies give U.S. debt their highest rating in spite of our $18 trillion national debt. Investors worldwide lend us money for 10 to 30 years at less than 4% in spite of our $18 trillion national debt. Politicians have successfully convinced the public that the national debt is not a problem, and no citizen has ever knowingly paid 10 cents toward paying down the debt. I guess you can fool most of the people most of the time. As long as the national debt is viewed in this light, it will continue to grow unchecked. It is my opinion our political leaders will not take any action for 10, 20, or 30 years, and the national debt could reach 100 trillion, 200 trillion, or more, unless our citizens put pressure on our political leaders to take action. That's what these videos and the book is all about. I sincerely believe every patriotic American should have a copy of my book because it clearly shows the extent of the national debt problem and lays out the facts for anyone to challenge. Here's a quick look at my book titled The National Debt Crisis, America's Armageddon. Please take the time to listen or watch these videos. I'm sure you'll find them informative. Thank you for watching this.